My name is Leo Connors, and welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. Tonight, I got two special guests. I got the mighty Bosch and his trusty sidekick, Sid Morrigan.
Trusty sidekick.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you, sir.
Don't leave him hanging.
Nice to see you guys. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
I haven't seen you. I haven't really been going to many shows either, so that's just my fault. You know? But I saw something on Facebook that I absolutely love. It looked like you guys were both in an elementary school with the kids. And how did that come about? And I know you told me, but well, tell everybody how it came about.
So when I'm not doing the pro wrestling superhero sidekick thing, I work in a library. I'm a librarian. So it's sort of this melding of two worlds. And I had this idea kicking around, and I actually reached out, started originally with RWA, and we've been running it with that. And I reached out to T, and I'm like, hey, would you be okay if I reached out to the roster and went like, does anyone want to do a story time? Because I don't want to just do something in a company's name and recruit from the roster group without the okay. And he was like, yeah, of course. But what he also said was, well, funny thing, turns out we were already looking at doing a benefit for a library.
Oh, wow.
It was early in the works. We ran into some logistical issues. The short thing is libraries have different insurance than everywhere else.
Right.
And so that got postponed. But in the meantime, we already had this connection. So I talked to the person who was connecting with the library, which in this case was State Representative David Morales. Since he had the connection, I was like, hey, I've been kind of wanting to do this. What do you think about like hooking us up?
Right.
So we did a couple in Providence in different libraries in the different branches. And then this past weekend, we actually took it home to the library I work at. Like my Monday to Friday, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
We took it home and let's. It's like, here's the big show we've got.
And
we've test run it.
Where is that? What city is that?
Belchertown, Mass.
Okay.
So we had Big Juicy, we had Ryan Froust, and we had Mighty Bosch. We read a couple picture books because there are pro wrestling picture books.
Oh, cool.
The ones we did this time were called, was it Russell Wrestles the Relatives and Friday Night WrestleFest. But we have another one in the rotation called Dino Wrestling, which dinosaurs and wrestling. You can't miss with 5-year-olds will love it. We also have one called Vamos, Let's Go Eat, which is about someone getting tacos for all the luchadors.
Nice.
There's a whole bunch of books out there ranging from board books, picture books, up to novels, for YA fiction. There's comic books. The one that we never get to do because it doesn't work for a story time.
Right.
It's called Agents of Slam, and it's a kid's comic book where the President of the United States is the head of a wrestling federation, and the Secret Service are all pro wrestlers.
Wow.
It's good stuff.
It is delightful.
And I mean, you look at pro wrestling and everything like that, and you can draw a lot of parallels to a lot of things, comic books, movie, whatever. Obviously, with us and what we do, we're very kid friendly.
Right.
And this plays into that. And it's nice to be able to give back in a way that isn't just being in the ring and having that interaction.
Yeah.
When you are there and you read the stories and the kids interact and everything like that, and they have a good time. And then after the stories are done, we go and do crafts. Right now, we've got it set up where the kids can do coloring lucha masks and stuff like that, and then you put the strings on it. Like, it's fun and it's great and it gives back and everybody enjoys it and the parents love it and the libraries are giddy about it, and it's just it's a lot of fun, and hopefully we get to do more of them.
That is awesome. And you know, I work at an elementary school, so that really tugged at my heart. It really did. It's just amazing. And you said you did that around 4 or 5 times?
This was our 4th one, yeah.
Nice.
We did 3 in Rhode Island. We did this one at my home library, and we have 2 or 3 it's looking at so far starting next year. We have one in February, one we're going to be doing in April once we confirm the dates, and another one that's to be determined.
Right.
Now, you said Ryan Frost went too, right?
With this one, yeah.
Now, did he change his attitude? Because, I mean, most of the time I see him, he's kind of a mean guy.
Well, I mean, so he was there, and he was, announcing us to the audience, when Juicy read and then when I read and everything like that. And then, he got a little frowsty, and he was a little upset that he didn't get to read. So he challenged me for the Pro Wrestling Storytime Championship. But we didn't have a ref. So we had the kids be the ref.
to bring a couple ref shirts.
Yeah.
It all works
And
out.
and you know, they had a little tussle, but in the end, I prevailed. And then when
Nice.
things were done, he apologized, and we shook hands, and we
nice.
all went and made luchador masks together.
That's awesome.
So, like,
Great job, Ryan.
Yeah.
Great job. Before I get into fan questions, I just wanted to bring up, you guys have worked for a lot of companies, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to read off some of them real quick.
Okay.
Renegade Wrestling Alliance, the RWA.
Home.
Proving Ground.
Yep.
Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling.
Yep.
Tough and Talented Wrestling,
Yep.
which I didn't even know existed, honestly. Colonial Wrestling Alliance, New World Wrestling Extreme,
Yep.
UFO Wrestling,
Yep.
Test of Strength,
Yep.
House of Bricks,
Yep.
Outlaw Championship Wrestling,
Yep. That's
right,
and Power League Wrestling.
yeah, that's my old school and everything like that.
What other promotions have you guys worked for?
We
If you
did
could-
Let's Wrestle taping in
Limitless.
We did Limitless
did-
taping.
Nice.
It was a taping, not the full show, but
we did a
we
Limitless
did one
one.
of the pandemic at the dojo.
Nice.
It was before lockdown. It was like right at the beginning. There hadn't been a full lockdown. No one really knew what was going on, but
We did that. Planet Pro Wrestling.
Planet Pro.
Planet
Okay.
Pro Wrestling.
So where are they out of?
Connecticut.
Connecticut,
So
okay.
that's coming up in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It's the
Next-
16th.
Next week. Next weekend.
All right, cool. Well, at the end, we'll plug out your upcoming
No,
events
24th.
for sure.
It's 24th. Sorry.
Right. So there's Planet Pro Wrestling. Shut Up and Wrestle.
Yep.
You said House of Bricks. I'm trying to think who else.
There's so many.
You guys worked for
our-
Focus yet?
We have
I
not
think
worked
they're
for.
fairly new too.
We haven't worked for Focus.
We tried to work for Cosplay Championship Wrestling,
Yeah.
which is a subdivision of Tetsu
Okay.
Pro Wrestling. Unfortunately, things didn't get worked out, but we're kind of on the to get to list.
Yeah.
For them and
On the
everything.
radar.
On the radar.
Yeah.
I mean, we dress as superheroes. We technically have done RICW.
RICW.
I have worked for APW.
Sid actually.
Oh, nice.
I worked for APW.
Sid actually did
That's
work
awesome.
APW. Yep.
Was
Prime example of always bring your gear with you.
Yep.
Prime example.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
that's how that happened.
Smart.
UFO was on the list for sure. Of course, it has to be. That's where we see you the most.
We've done the Fenway show, so
Yep.
Yeah.
the conglomeration of promotions
Right.
that do that.
Yeah. What about NCW?
Yes, actually, I was
newly.
gonna
that,
say,
that was a
could've
lot
sworn,
newer.
yeah.
That was the most recent one.
Right.
Got
John
invited-
runs a good
He does,
crew over
and
there.
again, he's old school, so
Yeah.
like I've known him, and he's known me for
Right.
a lot of time and everything like that. So he invited us to do the Kids Day thing because
Yeah.
it's a theme. It's a theme.
Of course,
And
you gotta have the superheroes
And
there.
I think he liked what he saw, so I was able to do his Big City Rumble. So
Nice.
we'll see where that goes and
Yeah.
everything like that. So I think that's
Wrestle Party wasn't on the list,
Wrestle Party,
which we all miss dearly because
Right.
it was
we do,
so much
we do.
fun.
And then
Now, that was in Rhode Island, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
AS
then,
220.
what did he call it?
So the problem is when the list is really long, and I was like, I have this written out. I have
Tim-
a Google Doc with everything down.
So Tim Kilgore has a company,
Okay.
Cabaret,
Cabaret.
like cabaret.
Yes.
So-
because I see some of his entrances.
Yep.
He sings his way to
Yep.
the
Oh,
ring,
yeah.
which I think is awesome.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
he's done one. He's been working on the second show. We're waiting on confirmation for when that will happen. But that one's fun because it leads in sort of like vaudeville variety show.
Right.
So it's very different, but you also get to have fun. He was in a gauntlet match, worked against. You ended up working Faust
Faust.
and then Jacques Pierre Ballou.
yeah, Frous and ZPB.
Yeah.
Were two of that. There was one more. And Two Buff.
Oh, Two Buff,
Yeah,
yes.
so it was Frous too. Yeah, it was fun times, fun
Right.
stuff, and everything like that. And we do what we can, and we try to be good people and everything
Yeah.
like that. We try to be respectful and show up and help with breakdown and setup. And
Right.
if there's enough people to do that, we try to do other things to just take a little bit of
Yeah.
the burden off of the promoters and stuff like that.
That's
So
awesome.
We'll see. Hopefully, the future is bright and we get to
Right.
keep going.
But like you said, they'll always bring your gear. And I mean, just for instance, we talked about Todd Graham just before
Mm-hmm.
we came on. Todd goes to a show, you need an announcer, you need this or that. GK Durant, another one.
Yep.
Valuable people in the
Yeah.
wrestling business.
Absolutely. No,
know?
you're not wrong. And it's definitely the reason it's said so much is because it's true as a
Right.
statement. Like
Right.
you can't I've seen too many people not get on shows because they were like, well, I didn't think to bring my gear.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, you really could have just been on this.
Exactly.
You know, and more than just, oh, we need some extra bodies for a Battle Royal
Right.
Rumble. Like, oh, these people couldn't make it for XYZ reasons.
Yeah.
I need somebody in this match.
I mean, I tell some of the younger kids that are training, you know, show up to a show, offer to help set up the ring. I said, that gets you in the door. At least they know who you are.
Right.
And then you keep going, and then eventually there's a spot.
Right, and that's the thing too. You got to remember, it's not just, oh, I showed up once, I showed up twice,
Right.
and they didn't. But you got to be consistent.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah, I'll tell you real quick. Beyond wrestling, I was going every month, or every 5 weeks or whatever. And Alec Price was always going there, and luckily I happened to be there the night that they gave him his shot. That freaking crowd hated him like the old X-Pac heat, right? I came back 3 weeks later. He was the most over person there, and he did that by hard work in the ring.
Yeah, that's
know?
it.
Oh, in November, we should be starting with a new company, new to us. They're reestablishing called Kaiju Pro Wrestling.
Okay.
So that should be fun, too.
And now where's that? In Rhode Island?
Connecticut.
I'm in Connecticut. So
Awesome.
we're branching out there a little bit.
Awesome. All right, listen, we got a few fan questions. Let's get
bring
right
it
in. Victor Bacanzo. Question for the mighty Bosch.
That's
What's
me.
your favorite wrestling move since becoming a pro wrestler? Did you have a famous finisher move before you were a wrestler?
Well,
I love you, Victor.
Before I became a pro wrestler,
Yes.
I was a shoot wrestler. I wrestled in middle school, school, high school, and college.
Right.
And I actually had two moves that I would use regularly in the shoot matches to try to end the match.
Right.
One was a headlock takeover,
Yeah.
which converted into a whole bunch of different tying them up and everything like that. And this other one, don't ask me what the name is. I cannot remember it for the life of me, but it looks like a combination of a rock bottom into a body slam.
Right.
And I actually did it not too long ago against Tough Talk Tony Spencer in the RWA when I beat him for the Ocean State title.
Yes.
I didn't finish him with that, but that was my move back in the 90s when I was wrestling, but that was also the move I was using when I was a shoot wrestler.
That's
and stuff like
wild.
that. So
Pick them up, put them down.
that's it. So that was my.
It looks kind of like a T-bone. It's almost, think of almost like the setup for a T-bone suplex.
Yep.
But instead of going backwards, it's boom.
Up and out, yeah. So
It looks
it's pretty
pretty.
devastating, and I can do it to just about everybody.
Nice. That is awesome. Now, question for Sid. Which of your favorite wrestlers of the past would you emulate in the ring?
So this is a hard one because I'm a newbie. I'm a greenhorn when it comes to the world of wrestling.
Yeah.
I only started watching pro wrestling probably about 6 months before I started training.
Wow.
2018
Ish.
was when I started watching pro wrestling. Look, I grew up in the woods. We had 3 channels and none of them had pro wrestling. All I knew growing up was people would be like, this stuff is fake. And I'm like, well, they're clearly hitting each other.
Right.
I don't know. That person clearly got hit with a chair. I don't know what's real. I don't know what's going on here.
Right.
This makes no sense. And it took me a little bit to get into it because it wasn't something I grew up with.
Right.
And then I fell in love with what it is as a story medium and an
Yeah.
art form in that. So that and the fact that I am horrible at names. So my scope is very small.
Right.
I definitely admire Beth Phoenix a lot. I admire Natalia, for people who've been in the business
Right.
for a bit. I also tend to there's little matches here and there
Right.
that I've looked at. Actually, I remember. Actually, I think you posted a match that was Superstar Billy Graham against Bruno.
Yeah.
And that match is amazing.
Yeah.
The fact that they're flashy spots. We got a couple arm drags and
Right.
It was Superstar beating Bruno in the Garden for the title.
And that was a beautiful match.
Yeah, it was.
It was in terms of I got lead in my rear. I'm never going to be flippy. But I'm also, I'm also 10, 15 years older than a lot of the people that I share a locker room with.
Yeah.
That's not what I should be doing anyway. Plus, I also outweigh most of them. So I look at it and both in my own skill and background and inclination, as well as I should also be smart about things, I lean more towards groundwork, towards grappling, because that's what interests me.
Right.
One of my favorite tag matches I've seen, there's others, but the first time FTR wrestled SCU in AEW, it was a beautiful tag match. And it was funny because SCU often has a lot of faster stuff, and it was slower, and it was they worked, and you could. I actually got to
at Colonial Wrestling.
Colonial Wrestling, we had Kazarian was one of the guests on the show, and I actually got to talk to him about the match, and that was really neat.
Yeah.
He's like,
he's a cool guy.
I heard he was. I've never met him, but
he is. He's very chill, very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
I just got one question real quick. Now, you said you didn't get into wrestling until 2018. Did you know about wrestling?
Oh, of course I knew about it.
Okay.
I knew about it, but it didn't, there was so much weird information about it.
Yeah.
So like, again, I'm a kid and people are telling me about this thing is fake and there's this living dead man and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. It also goes even better because again, free TV channels.
Right.
One of them's PBS. PBS, ABC, CBS. That's all I've got growing up. And that's with the big antenna that you have to rotate. With or the little one. So, I was so bad. I talk about being bad with names. I would get confused and conflate stuff from monster trucks with pro wrestling. We've got, you know what I'm talking about. With so I knew what it was, but I didn't grasp it. I didn't really get what the appeal was. I tended to lean more towards, either actual martial arts stuff or things where you're in there and actually pummeling the heck out of each other. Like I was training at one point to do stuff with the Society for Creative Anachronism where you put on metal armor and hit each other with sticks. So there was a disconnect. Yeah. And I kind of gave it a chance and he had to deal with me going, what are they doing? Until pieces started finally clicking and I could see what was going on. So I knew what it was, but I didn't get it until I started watching 2018. I went to my first live show, which was a Wrestle Party show in 2018. Okay. And I went in there expecting it to be kind of like, I was like, this is going to be like those community theater productions where you're like, small town, whatever. Like, and I think I hurt myself laughing. Meanwhile, this one's like, I need to get back in the ring. He's vibrating with the need to be back in.
And then a while.
Then 2019, I got him, basically kept prodding him until he finally went to
come back.
He went to Brick House training, and I made it when I could. Yeah. Living an hour and a half away, limited it. But yeah, that was sort of my history getting in. I kind of fell into it. Right.
That's awesome. Teach. Everybody calls them teach.
Yep.
All right. Here's another one. No, I'm sorry. JP Griffin. Mighty Bosch, you have a very old school psychology to your matches. Do you think on the era of the super kick parties, is that is missing?
I think they're calling you old.
What?
I think they're calling you old.
Well, I am. I'm old. Yeah. Well, again, it's you sitting in a locker room with kids who are younger and
than your boots.
Than my boots. It sometimes gets disconcerting. Yes, I think psychology is definitely missing in the era of the super kick syndrome or whatever you want to call it.
I don't think it's gone though.
I don't think it's gone, and there's definitely people who are still trying to use it as best they can.
Right.
There is. I enjoy AEW because let's be honest, that's where this question is coming from.
Right.
I enjoy AEW. I do not find myself watching everything that AEW does.
Right.
There are matches that just bore me to tears.
Yeah.
This is probably not going to make a lot of people happy. I did watch the Orange Cassidy versus Penta match.
Yeah.
Was that who it is? Penta?
I think it was Penta.
It's Penta, yes. And they basically no-sold and hit Canadian Destroyer after Canadian Destroyer. Yeah. And it's like, come on. You have people on this show who that is their finishing move, and you're no-selling this for what reason? Right. Whether it's a work or a shoot, I think MJF said it at a scrum or something like that. You guys are, the workers are trying too hard to get the fans to do things and put your bodies at risk for little to no reward. Right. And I think that's, I wouldn't want to say it's hurting the business because times change, things change. Right. You have what Bruno and Billy Graham did, what Pedro Morales did, what those guys did back then
Right.
did not translate well to the 80s.
No.
Which is why Bruno had a problem with Vince and what was
Yeah.
going on. And then when the 80s turned into the 90s and you had I get it. Change
Right.
is inevitable. It has to happen. But if you forget where you came from,
Yeah.
you lose something. And I think a lot of the times when people do stuff like that, yes, it can be fun and entertaining, but if you have a 9-card show and 6 of those matches do those things, you're diluting everything.
Absolutely.
So the psychology aspect of it, yes, I think there is a lot of psychology that is missing in a lot of matches. Do I know how to fix it? The only thing I can say is you need to get you need to add some more old school style stuff
Right.
into shows.
So I sort of want to build off of that. It's think about blockbuster movies.
Yep.
And actually, I'm going to back this up a little bit further. After, must have been like the second or third AEW pay-per-view. It was one of the ones where they had one of the bigger death matches.
Right.
The Sports Illustrated review of it commented that the problem with the match was not that it was bad. It was that there was so much happening right after another, and nothing ever had time to breathe.
Yeah.
You couldn't enjoy or feel the shock or the horror of what just happened because they immediately went on to something else. And going to sort of like broader than that, not thinking of that, think of a lot of the blockbusters that have been high action have just failed.
Right.
They're cut like a movie trailer, or they're cut all for the sizzle, and you lose the pieces the actual meat that connects them. You lose the lows and the development and investment in the story. But what we're also saying, well, there is definitely this. We're gonna go for the Flash, which every match should have some Flash. Actually,
Absolutely.
So wrestlers obviously we talk about each other's matches,
Right.
and shout out actually to Mike Montero. At one point, told him was
Great
like,
work.
all you need to worry about is what you want to have. You have that one, maybe two big athletic moment.
Right.
I mean, and this is coming from DCMC, and they have some very flashy matches.
Right.
And this is I'm not saying anything about that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
He's looking at Bosch and going, just worry about that. Have that one or two things. He does a leapfrog, and people are like, what just happened?
That's awesome.
And people remember that in my match more than almost anything else. Or if I do an up and
But they know.
But they
like
know.
that.
But the other part of that is that much like a roller coaster and something like that, the anticipation as you go up to get to that drop, you need that build up to get to the drop so that you can come back out, take the breath, and oh my God, and I don't think, and with the super kick,
Super
arrow,
kick party.
stuff like that, I don't think we're getting that anymore.
Right.
And I think that's not letting the business rise to its full potential.
Right.
And I know it almost sounds like a Monday morning quarterback over here saying, well, when I was, it's not like that. Like,
Right.
I watch this and I can honestly say that I have been in locker rooms and I'm sitting there and I'm listening to these workers, these young workers, 2-3 years into the business, and they're calling matches and they're trying to throw so much in. I mean, you did catering for so long. You know exactly what it's like when you've got something that you want to cook. You don't need to throw in every ingredient.
Exactly.
You got to give them a little to give them some flavor so that they come back for more.
Right.
And that's the thing I think that's missing.
I will say though, like one thing I think that AEW's done that I've liked is that I like that they did, that I think they helped on a wider scale, is we started seeing women's matches that were more wrestling matches. It was less of, it looked, I think they did, well, they're not handling they could always do better with their women's division.
Right.
We started getting to see women's matches that we weren't seeing as much elsewhere.
Right.
And I think actually the last WWE pay-per-view had matches and we're like, these are really simple matches and we loved it. I think there was one point where we're like on the third or fourth match, we're like, this isn't a bad match. But the ones before it were so good.
Right.
And it was really interesting watching a pay-per-view and going, they've only done 3 flashy things in this entire match. That's all they did.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's happening. People are playing with it. It's not that it's gone.
Right.
It's that what's working right now. And I think people are playing around and experimenting.
Right.
always going to be adherence for let's do the gymnast.
Of course.
Do
and the
do
dives.
flashes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't need to see 15 dives in 10 matches.
Some people like death matches.
Right.
Some people want as much, they want to see the technical matches.
Right.
I tend to like technical.
Well, going back to Bruno and Billy Graham era, okay? Guys weren't like, if let's say Tony Garea was in the semi-main event and he throws a drop kick, well, first 4 or 5 matches, ain't even gonna have a drop kick.
Right.
in
Yep.
it, because they respected. But now, like you said, now everybody does everybody's move. And they
Right.
do 10 dives a match. It's like one dive. It's a tag team match. So you see the first dive, there's 3 more coming. Because they can't help themselves.
And I get it. Like, this can go round and round and round. And, well, if you're doing that, then nobody should be chopping after this.
Right.
Nobody should be...
Right.
There are certain things, like... I find it funny that we call it the super kick era, and that we changed Shawn Michaels' finishing move from the super kick to Sweet Chin Music, because it
Right.
needed to be changed
Yep.
to differentiate from it being a finisher
Right.
to being a standard move.
Yep.
And that's something that, it's a subtle change, but that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand.
Right.
And you don't want to encourage bad habits, but you also don't want to crush people's creativity.
True.
So it's a fine balance, and if I talk to people in the back, or if they ask me to watch their match,
Right.
and I try to be as honest with them
Yep.
without crushing them.
Right. You're
Because-
not doing them any favors by lying to them.
Right, and
That's
it
true.
also doesn't help them if I'm just basically poo-pooing on everything,
Exactly.
Being like, oh, well, you did this and you did this, and that all
Right.
sucks.
You should have us, like, if you did this, maybe you should have did this.
Right, exactly.
Right. I got you.
And I
Take
when
that
I
second to breathe.
Right.
and when I ask for people's reaction or critiques on myself, like, that's what I'm looking for myself
Right.
as well, because I'm a big guy. In this area, there are big men, but
Yep.
there are not as many big men
No,
as you
there
would
isn't.
think.
Right.
So I don't get to have those kind of matches with people. So a lot of my stuff has to be me versus a smaller opponent, a skinnier opponent, a shorter,
Yeah.
or someone who is of my height, but they're like 120 pounds smaller than me. So
Right.
being able
So
to fine tune that is tough. Like, so again, I think psychology is something that needs to be brought back into the training, because there are definitely good training schools around here.
A lot of great training
Oh,
places.
Absolutely. But I
The
think
kids are skilled that are coming out.
part of the thing that needs to be taught, which I don't see,
Right.
is psychology, promos, being able to take a breath in the ring.
Yep.
I'm not a trainer, so I know it's not always the most feasible thing to do.
Right.
So I get it, but definitely if it can be worked in so that they can be taught this,
Yeah.
because sometimes you don't realize that that's what you need.
Right. And it must be a breath of fresh air when you get to take on a guy like Ryan Frost. Just say, you know what I mean? A guy that's a big dude.
Ryan Frost, Thrash,
Yes.
Grim Reaper,
I think it's just Reaper.
Reaper, yeah, Reaper.
Oh, UFO. I love working those guys because we have the same kind of mentality.
Right.
And it works.
You're
Did
dying.
you ever work Big Bear?
No, but we teamed. Oh, no, I
we-
did.
yes.
I did work Big
Yeah.
Bear.
Because I'll tell you, man, for his size, he can work, and his finisher maneuver is incredible.
I've been
got
on the
him on the
receipt-
knee, and he hits you from behind.
I've been on the receiving end of that finishing maneuver.
man.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah. No,
I love Jerry, too. Great guy.
No, I miss him so much. But
too.
we have wrestled each other and we have teamed together. So definitely,
Got to get him back on here. Big Bear, hit me up when you see this. All right. So Edgar Arthur Stevens. Buddy Bosch, I love your spark plugs, man. They keep all the motorcycles running great at the Roadhouse.
about
No,
40 years.
seriously. The crossover event seems like an odd and unusual grouping. How did you all meet and decide to come together as a team? Great. Nice question.
That's a good
Edgar.
question.
It is.
I'm also surprised it took people this long to start getting in on the whole spark plug. And like that's so crossover event. I find it funny that he said it's an odd pairing, because if you look at us individually, the way that the booker looked at us,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Right.
I show up and I wear a cape.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we have any questions as to what the identity is.
Yes.
It's a superhero.
Yeah.
And if anybody has a real question about it, it's a Superman kind of superhero.
Right.
Like that's kind of where we're going. Golden Age. So
Yeah.
but TKO, who is the other half of the crossover event, showed up at a show wearing a Spider-Man inspired
Really?
gear. Yes. So you've got a Superman looking guy
Yeah.
and you've got a Spider-Man looking guy, and the booker literally went, I have an idea.
Yeah.
You guys are going to be a team.
Nice.
And that's how it was born.
Yeah.
Like I wish
That's
there.
awesome,
I mean,
though.
I can give you there was a disturbance in the cosmic entities of the universe, and there was a rip in space time, and
The Spider-Verse, get it right.
the multiverse. It's the multiverse. Spider-Verse, Christ. Anyways,
That's awesome.
but yeah, that's what it was, and that's how the name came about too, because
Right.
it was okay. When you take going into comic books or anything like that, when you take a character from DC, like a Superman or a Batman, and you pair them and put them in a book with a character from Marvel, like a
Right.
Captain America or a Spider-Man or something
Yeah.
like that, it's a crossover event.
right.
Ta-da!
That's it. Yeah.
Elegance and simplicity, man.
That is awesome.
It's the simplest thing in the world.
That is awesome. Also, he says, I love the chibi design.
Chibi.
Chibi's up.
Chibi design. I'm going to have that put onto my list to get after Kid V's chibi. I don't understand that.
Kid
but,
V works. So Chibi, it's our little cartoons.
Oh, okay.
The little cartoon.
That cartoon's called Chibi. It's
Yeah. All right.
they're-
Now I know it.
They're simplified design. Usually the head's a little bit big compared
Right.
to the body.
Not that much different from what I look like normally.
And
Don't give me
yeah,
that.
Kid V works. Kid V works APW a lot.
Okay.
He's in the area.
Oh, Kid V. Yeah. Yep.
And he recently released Chibi design as well.
Oh, nice.
So there's definitely it's a cool design. It's a cool.
Right.
I'm not going to say that we were scouted out on our design, made it around, and there happens to be a professional television stable that also happens to have a very similar design. No judgment day, but I mean it's a cool design.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Sid does more than anything else is they go out and between the Facebook groups or whatever,
Right.
they find artists.
Nice.
We look at the artwork and everything like that, and if there's something that we like, we come up with an idea and we try to commission the artist to do the work. And
that's awesome.
so a lot of the designs, for the most part, I know for all part, have been commissioned artworks from various independent actual
One was a
artists.
gift. You got one as a gift.
One was a gift, yes, but
we've-
for the most part. And we try to make sure that
Right.
people, it's reasonable and that we pay them and give them credit and everything like that, because we're indie wrestlers. We understand
Right.
independent artists, writers.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
thing. You got to support where you
Absolutely.
can. So that's where the chibi design came from. That was,
Yeah.
That's really cool.
listen, the whole thing with the sidekick came about
Yeah.
after the fact, because this one was literally supposed to be the behind the scenes person
Yeah.
for me. And then,
Logistics.
Brick House Teach had a different idea. And
Right.
here we are now, 4.5, 5 years later, and it's like,
Nice.
okay.
Good job, Teach.
But most of our designs are, and the chibis I gave some license to the artist up at the post, but I'm like, this is
Yeah.
kind of what I'm looking for. Most of them I usually provide, I provide concept art. I'm not saying the sketches are good. Same with it. Both of our gear is
Right.
based on stuff I drew.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
I make rough sketches of what I'm like, this is what
Right.
I'm looking for. Here's for the color blocking, the color, so all they have to do is make it actually work. So the Bosch tones shirt, I was
Yeah.
like, so here's the original, here's a sketch of what I'm looking for,
Right.
and how I want to marry the two ideas. What I did with this shirt,
Yeah.
where I was like, so here's the reading rainbow, this is what I want to do with it.
That's cool.
So I've been doing that with our different designs.
So
That's sweet.
that's fun
And
stuff.
eventually I have a one for him and his love of iced coffee.
Nice. Well, you love iced coffee.
I love ice coffee.
Real quick, only because you brought him up. Well, I did too. Kid V, right?
Yep.
He's trying to get a ramen noodle company
Yep.
to sponsor him. So
Yep.
come on, guys, get on that. That's enough
help
about
him, man.
Kid V.
Yeah. But help him out, man.
I don't know,
Seriously.
I don't
Yeah.
know. They might have competition with Montero.
With Montero,
Oh,
yeah.
what? He wants the noodles
No,
too?
so-
Sign guy.
Yeah.
Greg.
Yeah.
Has a sign. Has some
Unique
si-
signs.
signs
Yeah.
for Montero and DCMC in general that are ramen noodle related.
Oh, okay.
Montero ended up bleaching or dyeing his hair, something like that, and
Blocked.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's blonde.
Yes.
And when
And
it's wetted,
wet.
it had like the long curls.
Gotcha.
So he would bring out. He made ramen noodles. They made shirts.
Yeah, yeah.
So he came to like a PG show with like his whole section all wearing these ramen noodle shirts that were Mike
That's
Montero.
awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Shout out to Greg Sangai,
Yeah,
amazing,
Greg.
amazing fan.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Greg is very skilled with art stuff.
Yes, very.
Way to go, sign guy. All right, Michael Patero, who is the politician's brother.
Oh,
How did you develop your wrestling personas?
Okay, so the short versions were nerds.
yes, yes. Yes.
But the other part about it is, so there's that question that goes around is like, in video games, why do you always choose to play the hero and play the villain? And what it boils down to is, for neither of us, there's no power fantasy in us in being villains.
Right.
The power fantasy is making the world a better place.
Yeah.
Like, that's
is.
shoot.
Right.
There's no work in that. And it was, how do we take this into professional wrestling? How do we take this into what we're into, and how do we develop it? Because we both took things from very disparate places, and we're like, okay, we need to kind of make these work together.
Right.
And the multiverse works, so we can have lots of different versions,
Yeah.
but we need a main one we put out there.
Right.
And so, back in the 90s,
Yep.
Attitude Era, stuff
Yep.
like that. When my partner and when I was wrestling and like that and still finding my way,
Yeah.
I ended up forming a tag team with my friend who, when we joined, the original gimmick was the American wrestler, because
Yeah.
shoot background,
Right.
and he was the American martial artist.
Okay.
Which nowadays you're like, oh, that's so. Back
was the
then
90s.
it was.
No, it
back then it
wasn't. You're
wasn't.
right. You're
You
right.
had shoot wrestlers, like
Yeah.
you had the guys like the Steiner brothers and the Varsity Clubs, like
Oh, yeah.
in the '80s and stuff like that. Like they were there, but it wasn't. And this was just before Kurt Angle broke.
Yes.
Like it was just. He had just won the gold.
Right.
But he
Yeah.
hadn't made the transition yet.
Right.
So
And we didn't know that he was looking to make that transition.
Not at all.
Because all of a sudden he showed up.
Which people don't realize exactly how crazy that was, because he was a shoot guy, and shoot wrestlers like Brock Lesnar, one of his first interviews he did right around the time he won the NCAA championship was basically disparaging to pro wrestling.
Right.
Look at him now.
Yeah.
Brock hated pro wrestling.
He did hate it.
So that was a big thing. So my character was an American wrestler. His character was an American martial artist. And we kind of did this marriage of styles,
Right.
Almost kind of like the Can-Am Connection,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And we worked from there. And then we kind of changed and put jackets on and glasses and stuff. And I was very much like a Steiner fan, and he was very much like a Japanese wrestler fan. So
Right.
we kind of tried to do that in PLW and stuff like that. We won some titles, things like that. When I came back,
Right.
because
After how many years, just so the fans know? My 3 fans.
20.
Wow.
So my last match was end of '99. My first match was beginning of
2019.
2019. So
I know we talked about this before, but that just blows my mind still.
it was definitely, and
Glad
listen,
you came back, because I wouldn't beg you.
I'm glad I came back too. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Liftington, thank you as well, because you had a part of that. And Tobin, who none of you know, has nothing to do with wrestling other than the fact that he's my friend and comes to the shows and has been since the 90s. It's also his fault as well. So I love you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So when I came back, because the Steiners had been so far removed and their look and such wasn't as prevalent.
Right.
Because the last thing a lot of people remember about the Steiners was Rick had already retired. There was rumbles that his kid was coming.
Yeah.
And Scott had given the Steiner math promo and was wearing the weird booty short, and he was the big bad booty. Whatever.
Right.
So I came back wearing a dog-faced gremlin-inspired kind of gimmick.
Nice.
But nobody was able to understand that I was trying to be this good guy hero,
Right.
looking like this kind of biker-esque dude.
Right.
In a shoot singlet.
In a shoot singlet. So we finally sat down and was like, okay, we need to come up and get some kind of
Right.
superhero kind of look. Sid Design ended up coming up with a viable design. We found a gear maker, and boom, that's the suit.
That's awesome.
The backstory to all
Yeah.
this is the Mighty Bosch is a warrior fighter of the realm of the unknown.
Okay.
The realm of the unknown is the land of myth and legends. Your King Arthurs, your
Right.
your Beowulfs. samurais, the whole shebang. It's where imagination lives. It's where
Right.
the heroes come from.
Right.
Wrestled in the 90s, fought the good fight, had to depart on
Yep.
another mystic quest, fought vampires, fought demons and stuff like that.
For almost 20 years.
For almost 20 years, which is a blink of an eye.
Right.
No, but yeah. Something happens, and Sid, using magic powers, makes a portal to go reach in and find a hero to bring back or to bring forward to
Right.
help fight whatever injustices are going on, which is weird because it's in the wrestling world, but it's still
Right.
kind of worse because you never know what's going on.
Right.
Because we have dead men and demons
yeah.
and demon kings and
Yep.
tyrannical despot kings
Absolutely.
and
Archmages.
archmages and meta villains and
Oh, Dick Lay.
and things like that. So Sid brings forth and finds this aging warrior,
Right.
and brings him forward
Nice.
to restart his quest to try to bring hope back to, and
That's awesome.
that's where that goes.
That
and
is
there's all
awesome.
different versions of Bosch out there.
Right.
There's a cowboy version,
Is there
and
really?
there's a knight in shining armor version,
Nice.
and a space version. There's all tons of them.
We've come to the show as Jedi in the past.
Nice.
So I mean, it's a thing.
That is awesome. Great question too, Michael. Thank you. Tiffany Aruda, who has her own show, and I can't think of the name of it.
RICW
RICW.
goes by the name Jacqueline Sparks.
Jacqueline Sparks. Okay, well, she has a question. What's your favorite thing about wrestling? Can I say something real quick?
Go ahead.
Like how you
It's your
talk
show.
about? No, but I like to dispel belief. When I go to wrestling and that guy says he's a GOAT, guess what?
He's a GOAT?
He's a GOAT for 15 minutes, honestly.
Yeah.
Because you got to dispel belief to really enjoy wrestling.
We need him versus Bobby Orlando.
Yeah.
Just imagine the two of them
Yeah.
And then
Freaking
Bob-
Flax versus Barbie Orlando.
with Bobby
Bobby's
Jr.
really good too,
yeah,
man.
no.
Yeah, Bobby Jr. That's his
But
little
ju-
GOAT,
but
right?
Just think, Bobby Orlando, Bobby
Yeah.
Jr., and freaking Flax.
Oh, I love Flax.
Just imagine
Yeah.
that. All of that.
That'd be awesome.
It would be.
We'll take a 10% commission on whichever promotion books that. Thank
That
you very
is
much.
really cool,
But just
yeah.
give us a spot on the card.
Yeah, let's get Flax on the show for sure.
My first go round, pro wrestling was the thing I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I think if the stars had aligned right and things were as ideal as they could have been,
Right.
I would have tried to pursue a career in pro wrestling as far as possible, like most of us in the 90s.
Right.
Having been gone for 20 years and coming back, part of the me coming back was I needed something that I had been missing.
Yep.
I had just come out of being part of a different social group and social organization, and it got really toxic and really bad, and it hurt, and I was feeling very lost. And then through the grace of Sid and Lyft and everything like that on the shoot, was able to find an avenue back into pro wrestling. Because what Sid said earlier about we went to a wrestle party show and
Yeah.
I was vibrating.
Wow.
I'm not kidding.
Right.
We're sitting in the audience because I hadn't been to an indie show in 20 years.
Right.
Like I had gone to a couple
Right.
of live events and things like
What
that.
show
because
were you talking about that you went to? What?
It was Wrestle Party.
Okay,
It was a
Wrestle
Wrestle
Party.
Party
Yep.
show at the AS220. And I'm sitting there and, I mean, it's a small black box venue. So you're the ring and I'm sitting here and that's where the match is happening. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching and I'm like, I miss this. And I'm shaking.
And Sully books a good show.
Yeah.
He books a good show. He books good concepts. He lets people experiment in really interesting ways. And it really leans into the character and the story of things.
Right.
And people try stuff they don't necessarily do anyways because it's not a show where, like, also there's limitation of the space. So, like, yeah, you're probably not doing a superplex in the AS220.
Right.
And people worked a little bit differently. They tried things differently. I think it was the first time we saw DCMC work.
First time. It was the first time I saw Kellen Thomas work, and I didn't see him work as Kellen Thomas. I saw him work as Coach K.
See, because Brian Malonis and Big Scott are doing the same thing with Rad Pro Wrestling.
It's kinda,
where, you're somebody completely different than you are working for Chaotic or somebody.
Right. And I'll never forget the realization, because I saw that and I saw the Coach K and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is interesting. I didn't think anything of it because was just coming back.
And it was Kellen with Channing Thomas.
Oh, wow.
So he was Coach K,
The gimmick was that he was like, he'd be like, oh, this is how you do it. Oh, no, my knee's bad. I have to get out. So
he's been around a while, too.
He's
probably older than he looks.
He would be selling, he'd come out as the high school coach who still thinks he's got it, but doesn't got it. And Channing's playing the eager, I got this, coach. And there was a match, it was him versus Ike. It was I think,
oh, wow.
it was one of the first things we saw.
And it was fun and everything like that. But this is what I'm seeing. And then a couple of months down the road, a couple of months go by, and
we forgot watch this fight. We've worked for watch this fight.
Yes, Nick and
because that's where this match happened that you're about to talk about.
And I'm sitting and I'm watching Cal, and who it was?
Icarus.
Yeah, it was Icarus and everything like that. And we watched the match. It was the first time that Icarus was with them, and I watched the match. And I'm like, this can't be the same guy.
Right.
This can't. What the hell was this Coach K stuff? This is what this guy can do, and I was floored.
Right.
So it was like, holy God! And Steve Baker was wrestling as King Leon, and he was the evil king, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I have a knight errant.
I'm a knight errant.
I'm a knight errant. I can come and do this. I can and I'm shaking and I'm giddy and I'm like, and
the energy is so good in those shows.
I did. I wanted it back, and then I got back and had to work through everything because nobody knew who I was. And the few people who did know who I was were like, wow, you came back. What the hell are you thinking? And
there's definitely a couple people who are like, oh yeah, I was just getting started when you were wrestling.
Wow.
There's a
Mac Madness literally said that to me. Yeah.
Same with Lift.
Lifting can say the same thing.
No kidding. I gotta get Lift on here. I do.
Yeah, no, he's a good time.
And it just coming back and putting in the work and everything like that and trying to reestablish who I was and everything like that. And then having that found family.
Right.
I can't tell you how many people walk up to me and either call me dad or call me uncle.
Right.
And it's wonderful and it's glorious. And I get such a high from it because it makes me feel like I'm doing something right. And
absolutely.
That's the thing about pro wrestling that I think I love. I love doing the matches. Don't get me wrong. I love doing the matches. I love getting the kids to smile.
The camaraderie.
But getting in there, being in the back, just talking and living and creating, and there's something about it, and it gives me the rush that I've been missing. And
what a rush.
Yeah, seriously, what a rush. And going to the shows and just talking and just bonding and I'm sure you've heard this and with all the interviews you've done, the thing about pro wrestling that pro wrestlers love the most isn't the match, because that's 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. It's the drives. Yeah. It's the staying overnight. Right. It's the 15 hours one way with a car full of people.
It's the guy that you only see once every 6 months, and you're only with him for 10 minutes, but you can't wait to see him.
Yes, exactly. For me, that's the thing.
Right.
Because I feel like I'm not only learning, but I'm also giving back.
Right.
And it's actually welcomed, and people like it, and people encourage it, and people yearn for it. And it goes both ways. And so that's me being sappy. It's
that's
what
amazing.
it is.
That was a great answer, though. Thank you, Tiffany, for this is the first time she sent in a question. Thank you very much. Adam Nessel, can you explain your character's backstory? You already did.
Did that.
Thanks, Adam.
Jumped the gun on that one. Sorry, Adam. But there it is.
Well, I want to get in. I've been trying to put in some new questions, all right?
All right.
Thoughts on CM Punk?
So before he gets into this, his opinion prefaced before he even came back.
Okay.
I could also summarize this if you want to save yourself from this.
No. I'm a man of my word. I'm going to say it, and I know this is going to be...
That's all right. I probably agree with you.
I don't like CM Punk. Okay. I don't like his wrestling style. I can appreciate what people see in him and what he has done for the business. Myself personally, I don't think he's nearly as good as he pretends to think he is.
Okay.
There is a lot of stuff that Phil does on the outside of wrestling that I am all for. And I'm sure he is a wonderful human being and a nice guy, and he does a lot of stuff.
Really, but
I have never, the closest I've gotten to him was I went to an ROH show in Revere.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how long ago, but Daniel Bryan, whatever the hell he's calling himself, the American Dragon fought Jushin Thunder Liger.
Oh, yeah.
And it was in an ice hockey rink.
Right.
So that was the ROH show that I went to, and I saw him there, and he was not somebody who did it for me.
Right.
So, and this is all prior to leaving WWE, this is all before that. I just have never gotten behind him and what he does.
Right.
Then he comes back, and if you look at the numbers, he only does well in Chicago. Everywhere else, he's garbage.
True.
And then he's got the issues with the Elite, which is another group of people I am not all that fond of.
Right, me either.
And then that happens, and then it comes back, and then we get whatever, and now we have this instance. And I don't want to be an I told you so, because, again, I don't know the man personally.
Right.
But
and we're also in a business where everything needs to be dramatic, too. So there's also the different levels of, okay, the stories were given, but you know what? We don't know what we're being sold.
Right. You know, and how much of this is actually a work, and how much of this was him asking for his release. We don't know whether or not Hunter turned around and gave him a backhanded deal and be like, get out of the contract, and we'll put you on TV. Like, we don't know.
We don't know. Right.
Could that have happened? It's wrestling. It's possible it could have happened.
Right.
Did it? Well, time will tell. But personally, no. CM Punk.
Well, how about this? Do you think Jack Perry should have been let go too? Even though it was his first altercation of any kind, I'm thinking.
So my thing is this, because in my shoot job, I am a union employee. And so in a union, regardless of who starts the fight, the both of you are gone.
Yep.
Bottom line.
Right.
I think that should have happened.
I do too. I do.
Looking at it from before I was in the union, from a retail perspective, because I spent 25 years in retail.
Okay.
Because it was Perry's first incident.
Right.
Major incident, giving him the equivalent of like a suspension
which happened in the earlier conflicts that have happened.
Right, and he did get suspended because he has not been at any AEW event since. And there's no time limit so far.
Right, the indefinitely thing I think is a word that gets thrown around way too much, but that's my own personal thing. Punk was on a strike 2 or strike 3. So him being gone makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
Jack Perry being let go for X amount of time or not allowed on TV for X amount of time and then being brought back makes sense.
Yes.
I don't know what his part of the altercation was, because again, we're not getting all the information.
True.
So as an outsider looking in, I think this was handled as best as it possibly could have been.
Right.
That's my own personal opinion.
Right.
But I've never been a fan of CM Punk.
And
Sorry, AJ.
So again, I didn't grow up watching this.
Right,
CM Punk, I've heard the name.
Yeah.
There wasn't that emotional resonance because I didn't know who this guy was.
Oh, I hear you.
I know some people who are into him. But I didn't get the cult of personality, shall we say.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
He's tried to explain the pipe bomb to me, and I've actually never watched it.
Wow, I gotta say, it was good. The pipe bomb was good. It was good.
And some of his mic, he does do some good mic work.
Right.
There's definitely some workers who I definitely appreciate it for. I honestly, I'm a fan of The Miz.
Yeah. I like The Miz, too. To be honest with you, I do. I like him a lot.
It is. We're actually at last pay-per-view. The Miz versus LA Knight. They cut promos. They both do good promos, and then they had a match that they did 3 moves.
Yeah.
Everything else was was taunting, was working the crowd, was grappling. They did some mirroring. I was like, I can work with this. LA Knight needs to get either smaller underwear or bigger trunks. I don't know which.
One or the other.
But But think about how they connect and how they work. Think about how Roman got better once he started working with Paul.
Oh,
because he learned how to cut a promo.
he really learned.
So
I mean,
yeah, that's
or heck, Cena pretending he doesn't know how to cut a promo against The Miz.
Right.
That was, you see that work and you see where you're going from that. It is a skill and it takes
Right.
practice.
Yeah.
Because you have to think on your feet. I tend to think things. So when I record promos, like
Right.
I take multiple takes. He hates that because he wants to be one and done. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I am putting this wordplay in
Yeah.
and I'm calling out this wrestler on 5 different gimmicks they've had in one promo. I don't care if
Nice.
anyone else gets it. I know it's there.
That's awesome.
so.
I can respect aspects of what he does. He definitely has a strong base as a worker. He knows how to work a crowd. He knows how to present a character.
Right.
That being said, I'm not someone that's been captured about him over other wrestlers.
Right.
I don't hate him. I don't love him. It's just
Yeah.
he is another worker.
Right.
I think if I went back and probably watched some of his Ring of Honor stuff, I might get into his work a
Yeah.
little bit more.
Right.
But
I will say the other reason why I know him is from the caterers for the Ring of Honor,
Yeah.
and he was a jerk, but he was talented enough where I don't want to miss his stuff though. And I know the guy's a jerk, but I'm a
That's
big
fair.
fan of his. Now listen, we're gonna have to bring you back just to play the name game because we don't have time for the name game, unfortunately. But that's what we're gonna do. Better bring you back soon if you want, and we'll do nothing but the name game. Okay, I'm serious. Nothing but the name game.
Whatever works, man.
Why don't you plug some of your upcoming appearances and stuff?
So we've got Stephen Lust's birthday bash
Yep.
on September 15th.
This Friday.
September 15th.
Where's that at?
That's at the Trinity Beer Garden in Providence, Rhode Island.
Free show.
Free show.
downtown
The
Providence.
show is free. I don't think the beer is free.
beer's not.
Right.
And then we have
Then we have the Newton show,
the Newton Show,
which
is a charity show for a pet adventure
rescue.
Animal
And who
rescue.
runs that one?
That's done with by Delilah Hayden.
Oh, okay,
And,
cool.
so they
and
were
Derek
doing that.
Conway. And that's
Happy
Saturday.
birthday, Dennis Conway.
Yeah, right. Derek Conway.
Derek Conway. No, wait a minute. Yeah.
Derek Conway.
It's Derek.
I'm sure. I'm gonna go with the logistics on
Yeah,
this
we'll
one.
go with the wrestling.
and then-
So Friday the 15th,
Yeah.
Saturday the 16th.
Yeah.
We're actually doing ring crew for a show on
17th, and then we have the 29th, which is the RWA
the 24th is Planet Pro Wrestling
Planet-
at the Wishes on Wheels
Okay.
convoy at Yukon.
Yukon, yes.
Yukon.
Outside the Yukon field. So for raising money for Make-A-Wish.
Nice.
And then
the 29th.
is RWA.
Phoenix.
T-Phoenix
This
and
is
the
a-
consequences of greatness.
This is a busy month, and we actually
That's
had
awesome.
1 or 2 shows that canceled. So
Oh, wow.
this is like the everything month.
Right. Well, guys, listen, thank you for coming on again.
Thank you, Lee.
I love it. Great to see you again. And we're going to play the name game real soon.
All right.
We're out. Peace. Hi, guys. I hope you're enjoying the show. Listen, I could use a little help to grow my YouTube channel. So if you could please like, share, and subscribe. That's most importantly, subscribe. Send me a direct message, and I'll give you a shout out here on the show. My YouTube channel is real simple. It's just my name, Leo Connors. Thanks in advance. Peace.